into the Jordy Culotta Show. Wave your hand out there, baby!
Shout out to the show.
She puts the pinky into the nostril. Man, look at that.
Healthy competition, there's nothing like it.
Y'all grow up. The line's wrapped around the stadium. Different strengths. I just lost a tooth.
It's going to be fun.
You know, we might have a story.
I love what you're doing.
Ogeron wants to take us fishing this afternoon.
Sharif, you play for the bad boys of the SEC, man. We don't apologize to anybody.
But a lot of people are saying you're going to be wearing number 7.
I don't really know. I want to. He look crazy, Bill.
Good feet on the old man.
Definitely come back.
We'll be right back with the Jordy Culotta Show. Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet, live here on this Thursday. Appreciate you being here. Make sure you hit that like button, share button, comment button, as we'll be with you up until 9 a.m. this morning. We'll talk to Billy Embody from On 3 is recruiting right now. If you're paying attention, you see a lot of social media coming out with Brian Kelly, Frank Wilson, and the crew all taking in-home visits as they were making their way around Texas yesterday. Around Florida and Georgia yesterday. We'll talk to Billy Embody about some of the names to look out for here coming up on the Jordy Culotta Show. Driven and powered by Go Chevrolet, as we are every single day. Check out our friends over at Go Online, GEAUX, Chevrolet.com. Go Chevrolet is online and down in LaPlace, Louisiana, where you can find brand new cars if you're looking for them. We'll talk a little bit about the Pelicans today, as the Pellies look for real as they roll up Detroit last night over in at home 104-98, as Zion last night was flying around, had 29 and 10. Trey Murphy, last year's first round pick, finished with 20. He's a great compliment to. He's a great compliment. Would you say?
We made eye contact at the last game and held eye contact for a minute, and I've had a crush on him ever since.
She said, "We made eye contact. I know it."
Good
it doesn't seem like he knows it, but Katie is like, "Oh, definitely, 100%."
We definitely held eye contact.
Yeah. Who was the guy last year that? I think it was somebody in the playoffs that every time he saw the girls in the stands, he would go off. He saw those two blondes and he's like, all right. they put him courtside. You didn't see it? Do you remember this? I'll look it up.
Was it Warriors?
It might have been Jordan Poole.
Was it Jordan Poole?
I think so, yeah. All right, whatever it takes to make you play well.
Yeah, right, man. Chasing a ring.
Yeah.
Remember our friends.
That's what they're chasing.
Yeah, right. Go Chevrolet online, GEAUX, Chevrolet.com. As we said, big news for New Orleans. We'll talk a little bit about the Pelicans. Obviously, right now, the transfer portal, big news on what the future is going to be for players on campus. And Jeff Brom, who is Purdue's head coach, has accepted the Louisville job and is going to he's been at Purdue for the past 6 seasons, and he is going to accept now the Louisville job. So this Purdue team is going to be all shook up as LSU gets prepared for Purdue in this bowl game.
So will he be the coach then in the bowl game?
Has that been decided?
Yes, so he will
will
not. He will not be the coach in the bowl
okay.
game. His son, Brian Brom, the former quarterback,
Oh.
will be the interim head coach.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool, I guess, right?
I mean, the point spread jumped from 7 to 10 after it was announced. So I don't know how much faith they have.
It's a good
in
spot for
Brom.
LSU.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean,
You can't lose now. It kind of put more pressure on you to win.
yeah, it does. He puts more pressure on you to win. But, I mean, I think that LSU is going to be, it feels like this is going to be a big deal for them. This bowl.
and
This
I was-
bowl, just to get
Yeah,
to
that's what I
get
was-
back to a win.
That's what I was going to say. You don't want to lose 3 straight. Just
Absolutely.
no matter how you slice it, that seems like a bad spot to be in if you're LSU, just because it would make the year feel a little wonky at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like you win 9 games, go to the SEC championship, but you lose to Texas A&M, Georgia, and then a interim head coach at Purdue to Purdue in the Citrus Bowl is like, ugh,
Yeah.
just a bad
That would
taste
be a
in your
bad
mouth.
look.
So
They won't lose.
Go ahead and knock him out.
Brian's his brother, not his son.
Oh, brother?
Yeah, they both played at
Oh.
Louisville.
Yeah, well-
they both played at Louisville.
Yeah.
You idiot.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see which
Fact
one.
check yourself, Lloyd.
Appreciate it, Lloyd.
Yeah.
Dipshit.
Hey, nobody was talking. Call that half credit.
That's true. There you go.
That's like
Judges?
on the have you Jordy,
Wrong again.
I feel like you've done this like during like a multiple choice test, or like you have to pick like I don't know which one it is, but I'm going to explain all 4 of these because I know everything about this. I just don't know the answer to this particular question, so I just would have written in Brom. Like it's one of them, brother, son.
that.
I don't know.
Brother/son.
I just remember
Whichever. Yeah, I had it right there. I
Yeah.
told you it was his son
it was his son.
and his brother, right?
They're related. I should have just said relative.
Anytime they give you the multiple choice A and C, D and B, you're going with that one, right?
Oh yeah.
What do you mean A and C, D,
Like
and
if
B?
they ever give you the
You
choice,
can choose 2?
When you
like
can
the
know
choice
it's
of
like
two of the multiple choice answers
that are
Yeah.
mashed
or one,
together.
and that's one of the
Yeah.
choice. Isn't that always the one?
Yes.
God, I hate
More than
those.
likely, I feel like.
Yeah,
when they
well
throw those
then
at you.
they'll do that, and then you'll be like, oh, I haven't seen this one yet. Then they'll have a flurry of like 20 of them. You're like, I picked B and D like 15
No
times. Like it
doubt.
can't be this
Yeah,
one every
no
time.
doubt.
Or
Same
just
thing-
D, all the above.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If there's ever an all of the above, I'm like,
Give me that one.
Give me that one. Like just I fold like a cheap suit every time. Like, oh, it could be all the above. I'm done reading this question.
So LSU will be preparing for Purdue as Purdue is going to be going through a coaching change. They'll be dealing with an interim coach. That'll be Brian Brom, who also is a former Louisville quarterback, and you would expect will most probably join his brother Jeff, who has just accepted the Louisville job on that staff when it opens up. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of shakes out. But for LSU's standpoint, they got some news yesterday that Jay Ward was declaring for the NFL draft. He's going to play in the Citrus Bowl, as he announced Wednesday. He's going to declare for the 2023 draft. I don't think this is a huge shocker. I don't think this is a big shocker for LSU fans. I saw some people asking, why is Ward leaving? I think he was planning. That was kind of the plan all along for Jay Ward this season, was that he wanted to get to the league. And look, I think that he had a really nice last 2 years on campus. I think he showed his versatility. I think he showed his game off. I mean, if you were paying attention late in the season, again, they were down a cornerback. Jarick Bernard-Converse didn't play against Texas A&M. They needed a corner. They shifted Ward from safety out to corner. We saw him do that a couple of times throughout his career. I mean, don't forget, Jay Ward played on that 2019 team. He didn't play a lot, but he played. He was on the field late in the Alabama game. He made a big tackle on a crossing route on Jerry Jeudy late in that game. But he was a freshman that came in with like Derek Stingley and, Cardell Flott in that class. And really, those 3 guys, obviously Stingley being the headliner and Flott being a guy that came on when he got on campus along with Jay Ward, that were really impactful in the defensive backfield that came in that 19 group. And to see him give himself a chance to get to the league, I'm pulling for Jay Ward, man. I think he's been a solid player for LSU, and over the last 2 years, I think he's improved his draft stock tremendously. And, I don't know how much more he could prove if he came back. I mean, he's pretty much shown everything he can do. You need a corner, you can play corner. You need a safety, you can play safety. You need a nickel, you can play nickel. I mean, he's really done everything you've asked him to do. And from a pro scouting standpoint, from an NFL standpoint, I think you're looking at Jay Ward, you're saying, wow, I mean, I know this guy. I understand who this player is. I don't have a lot of questions on him. So from a timing standpoint, I think it, I kind of expected this.
Yeah.
I wasn't real shocked by this news.
Not at all. I feel like going into the year, like you said, he was going to have eyes on the NFL, and then when you saw him walk out on senior night, you're like, well, he's, that's usually a telltale sign of somebody like that's going to go to the league. He's going to have that moment on the field of, this is my last game in Tiger Stadium. And so that's what kind of tipped me off. And what more, like you said, I think he kind of gets lost in the wash for how good he was for LSU, because you asked him to move all over the place. Yeah. Every year he did something different. He never struggled in any of the real positions. It wasn't like, man, we cannot have Jay Ward out at the corner. Man, you have to move Jay Ward back to safety. It's like kind of everything you asked him to do, he did and did it well. Yeah. And I think that's all you can really put on tape.
I really think he's a perfect fit for the NFL. I really do. I mean, versatility, guys, the first thing they're looking for, because the roster is so limited, you can only have 53 guys on an active Sunday roster. They are looking for guys who can do multiple things. And Jay Ward does multiple things, and he does them well. I mean,
and he'll run down on kick for you.
Yeah, he plays corner, he plays safety, he plays nickel, he can cover, and he's physical. Mm-hmm. I mean, he'll pop you, and he's been doing that since he got here. I mean, it didn't take him putting on 15, 20 pounds, 25 pounds for him to develop that part of his game. I mean, even when he was a undersized freshman, he was physical. And, I mean, at this point, he's as hard hitting as LSU has. Mm-hmm. I mean, if there's a physical play, odds are, I mean,
Jay Ward.
He's right there in it. So, I think Ward's probably going to transition to the NFL faster than he did college football.
Yeah.
And he transitioned well from high school to college. I mean, he had no redshirt season. He played on a national championship team and made plays and, really developed and evolved into a pro. I think he's I really do. I think he'll be.
There's nothing more for him to do.
I think he'll be a successful pro.
Yeah, me too.
And I wonder where he'll end up.
He'll probably be a third through a fifth round.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Third through fifth round and be a really solid choice and go make a team on special teams. And 2-3 years from now, you'll probably see him as one of the starting safeties in the league.
Yeah, he'll just pop up.
Yeah.
But that's what I was going to say. The reason he'll probably make a team is because he played special teams every year at LSU too. He was the one that blocked the kick in the COVID year.
Yeah.
Like they were. Who came in here and was saying we need to get him back on kick and on
was it a coach?
Field goal block? No, it might have been.
Was it Makai Wingo?
I forgot who it was, but Rohan was like, no, Ward's good. He ain't playing no more special teams. But when he gets to the league, he's cut his teeth there. So that's what I'm saying. A coach is going to see that and be able to put him in and be like, look, he plays special teams, can play corner safety, nickel. Like, he's so versatile, he'll get drafted. But if you're LSU, you wish he was coming back.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think that was that would have been like a Kayshawn news coming back.
Yeah, not to that level.
But just like the leadership,
yeah.
Like the experience. I mean, he's that type of playmaker on your defense. I mean, he's that guy that you look for over there that he's got to be dependable. I mean, he's got to make the plays.
And it might have been probably on that same level just because of the lack of depth that LSU is probably going to have on the defensive backside. Like, if you lose like getting Jay Ward back would have been massive because it feels like if you lose Mekhi Gardner, Jay Ward, Joe Fuchsia, Greg Brooks, you're kind of in a spot.
Well, I think they're
re-recruiting.
They're about to raid
the portal.
The portal on DBs.
Greg Brooks isn't in the portal, right?
No.
Is there a rumor though?
But he potentially could go to the
league.
Okay.
You remember Gordon came in here and said Greg Brooks came to his office and was asking about some life advice.
Yeah.
And then we asked Greg Brooks about it, and he kind of had that smirk as if I'm going to have a choice to make.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean,
I love him.
Yeah, he's a great kid. He's been great for LSU. But I mean, Lloyd brings up a good point. LSU is kind of in a they're in a spot in the defensive backfield. You know what I mean? Like they are going to have to hit on the portal. They're going to have to get some of these guys that they've got on campus and have been on campus to really start to play. I mean, I think guys like, Matthew Langlois, who's now going into his third year. I mean, some of these guys in the defensive backfield, you've got to have starting to get onto the field. I mean, you've got to have them starting to make plays. And some of these incoming guys, I mean, if they can land, some of these big-time names like Taviano and
Ricks.
Obviously Desmond Ricks, who's the number one cornerback in the country. And if they can, pick up some of these guys in the transfer portal that can step in and play. But I would say that's probably the most and biggest need right now as far as getting prepared for next season is, replenishing that defensive backfield room.
Is there anything worth looking into with the NIL stuff with the guys that are signed with Gordon where you'd be like, maybe that's an avenue to be able to bring some of those guys back when you talk about like a Greg Brooks, Mekhi Gardner, Kyron Lacey obviously is probably going to come back. But when you have guys that are fringe guys, is there any tie between Gordon's might be going to the table and be like, look, I mean, you saw it happen with Kayshawn. I imagine they worked out some sort of deal.
Oh, sure.
And so maybe that's like a way to keep some of these guys around for the next year.
Oh, yeah. I think that's one of – I think that was one of the intentions of NIL.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that, schools that were losing guys, and I think LSU's always been a great example of this. That's why the Kayshawn news was so big, because LSU had almost become like the poster child school of like 3 and done. And for guys that it didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, guys were leaving LSU that they were going undrafted. Like they weren't even being drafted, and they were like holding press conferences to leave. You know what I mean? It was like some of the strangest things, the period. But LSU was recruiting to the NFLSU model. I mean, that's what they were kind of selling. Like, come here, it'll be quick. You'll play big time games, and you'll get to the league. And that was setting LSU back for a long time. And now, with guys like Kayshawn coming back, that was huge news.
NFLSU is genius. Whoever came up with that.
Well, it was, but you're
and
cutting your nose off to spite your face.
They still use it kind of behind the scenes. Like that room we go into for the press conference, the Bill Lawton room. Yeah. If you walk back a little bit in there, all of it is like kind of a dedication to the NFL power.
All the helmets and
it's
stuff.
got all the helmets of guys that played on certain teams. It's got all of the accolades that people have accomplished in the league. It's really just kind of selling the success that you can have at LSU with getting to Sunday. So I mean that's ultimately what they want. That's ultimately what the recruits want. So it's interesting. And then look, now the transfer portal is kind of on fire, right? And people are making announcements, and people are waiting on announcements. People are looking for names. And a huge name yesterday that everybody's been paying attention to is Drake Maye, who is, the most talented freshman quarterback in college football. He's one of the most talented players in college football. He's North Carolina's quarterback, and there was wide speculation that the Carolina native, the North Carolina legacy, and now the first-year starting quarterback was going to transfer to Alabama. And he was a one-time commit to Alabama while he was in high school. But, like we said, his brother won a national championship in basketball, Sean Maye, at North Carolina. His dad played basketball at North Carolina.
Jeez.
His mom he's from Carolina.
Is he in the portal?
And yesterday he announced on social media that he's staying at UNC. He's staying in Chapel Hill. And look, I think this is a big deal for college football. I think this was one that everybody was paying attention to as to, is this going to start to be the model where you're at a school like North Carolina? And let's be honest, does anybody anticipate North Carolina winning a national championship in the next 3 years?
Not in football.
Okay. Not in football. I agree with that 100%. if I was to ask you that question, I think that 100% of the room would say in basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in football, no, not at all. Mm-hmm. So Drake Maye goes to Chapel Hill and sets records and is a player. I mean, if you've seen him play, he is a stud and would translate over to the SEC probably pretty easily. And Alabama's losing the best player in the country at that position, a Heisman Trophy winner, and a guy who's going to be a high-round draft pick with, look, they got 5 stars behind him. Ty Simpson's behind him. He was in Walker Howard's class, and Simpson and Howard, after Quinn Ewers reclassified, were kind of like the top 2 quarterbacks in that recruiting cycle. So Simpson's on campus in Tuscaloosa, but there's been a ton of smoke around Drake Maye possibly throwing his name in the portal and transferring over to Alabama and becoming their starting quarterback. And you really start that you started to see that momentum start to really kind of push that way. It almost became to a spot over the last 48 hours where it was like, this is inevitable. Like, I mean, this is going to happen. And yesterday, Drake Maye tweeted out, I think Lloyd showed the image, that he's coming back to North Carolina. And like I said, this is, I thought, when I saw it immediately, I thought this is big for the sport. Because if the model becomes, and look, it may, because a kid like Drake Maye is so tied to North Carolina, right? Like, I mean, he's literally got the tradition tied into his family home. I mean, he is a true legacy to the school. And so, you know, I mean, it may take a kid like this that stays home and stays rooted to where he is, and somebody that, you know, just is recruited to another school that has success at a school like this, like North Carolina, you know, and Alabama just creeps up and says, hey, man, we're losing our quarterback. You want to start for us? I mean, how many Drake Mayes are out there that says, no, I want to stay here at North Carolina, where I'm sure he will have an incredible college experience. I'm sure being Drake Maye on North Carolina's campus is probably pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he
Big
gets a
fish,
lot
little
of perks, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that want to hang out with Drake. And he probably still had those same perks at Alabama, but it's not home. It's not the experience that only North Carolina can create for Drake Maye, right? I mean, it's a very special scenario. But in other circumstances, in other instances, if there's no tie for a kid like Drake Maye to whatever the particular school is, I mean, pick the school. How many, I mean, there feels like there's only realistically 3 or 4 schools each year who have a legitimate shot at winning the national championship. I'm talking about pre-playoff, before the seedings, before the selections, right? I mean, you know if you're on the outside looking in of the race or not. And if you're at one of these schools that has no chance, and one of the 3 or 4 schools that do have a chance every year loses that quarterback or loses that player, Jordan Addison. I mean, think of Jordan Addison last season at Pittsburgh. Narduzzi, Pat Narduzzi, the head coach at Pittsburgh, lost his mind last summer, and rightfully so. Addison had just won the Biletnikoff
Kind of count on you coming back next year.
I mean, he was the best wide receiver in college football 2 seasons ago, or, you know, I mean, last year. He's going into the offseason. He knows he's losing his quarterback in Pickett because of his eligibility, but at least he knows he's got the number 1 wide receiver in the country coming back. And then out of nowhere, Lincoln Riley gets the USC job. And, I mean, do you recall the smoke around that story? I mean, like, it was kind of like starting to feel like the Drake Maye to Alabama story. It was like, I mean, this is inevitable. This is going to happen. I mean, it was so obvious Addison had to hold like fake workouts down in Texas to make people think that like there wasn't like real tampering going on, because Narduzzi was getting on public radio. He was getting on interviews. He was getting on platforms and losing his mind. I mean, it was almost like he was like threatening to fight Lincoln Riley. I mean, he was like, yeah, I called him. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it was
It's Pittsburgh, baby.
It got heated. But I mean, I'm sure Lincoln Riley was like, bro, you ain't gonna win no national championship up at Pittsburgh. I'm bringing Caleb Williams with me to L.A. You want the best quarterback in the sport to be throwing you passes next year, or some no-name that's got to replace Pickett? You know, I mean, Addison's probably like, oh, God. I mean,
You're going to play in Pittsburgh
oh,
in
yeah,
December?
and by the way, I'm going to get you $3 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ask your Pittsburgh boosters if they could do that. Narduzzi, I mean, he tried to rally the troops. He tried to kick up as much money as he could. But, I mean, you know, at some point, you're Pittsburgh battling L.A. with a 20-year-old talking about money and football. LA's going to win. So, I mean, it's...
And if it would have happened again, right, with Drake Maye, and I think the circumstances for Drake Maye, because of the family and the legacy and all of that, and that's the only thing that really helped North Carolina in this situation, is like he felt like he probably had to be a little loyal. And North Carolina probably kicked the bucket toward him a little bit, like, here's what we got. But if it was somebody else, and Alabama was going after the number one, you know, quarterback in the country, it seems like for next year, Caleb Williams aside, that it probably could have been a done deal and looked like Jordan Addison. And if that happens, that's when you probably have some real conversations around the sport. Because as soon as it happens in the SEC, that's when people are going to, like the real college football landscape is in the South, is here. That's when you probably makes more of like national news. Like the Jordan Addison thing, for as much as Pat Narduzzi tried to gripe, it just didn't seem like anybody really cared.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
I mean,
but if it happened here,
I mean, more people were like, well, hell, I'd like to see Caleb Williams throwing him passes in LA.
Yeah. Oh, USC could be fun.
Yeah, right.
But if it happens to an Alabama or,
Oh,
you know,
man.
that's when it's going to get the national, and by national, like the SEC networks, all of the talking heads here, that's when it becomes a story about, is this fair for the transfer portal? Like, that would be the next question, because you should have to recruit at some point, and Alabama does, but if they want to cherry pick the best players in the country every year, I mean, what are we doing here?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So maybe Drake Maye feels like he's going to put North Carolina back on the map.
No, I
maybe
felt
he's going
like-
to lead them to a national championship.
I think he's just going to have fun for 2 more years.
They got a lot of money there.
Oh,
So
that's what I'm saying, for
he'll
sure.
be fine.
And didn't his dad play there?
Yeah, his dad played basketball there.
Yeah. Brothers there?
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it would be weird
It's
to leave.
Sure, the family's doing just fine.
Yeah.
It's awesome to be Drake Maye at North Carolina.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, it's great for college football.
Walker Howard at LSU.
Yeah,
It is like that.
could be.
Could be.
So big news yesterday for college football. Katie, tell them about Dead Soxy.
Okay, hang on. Let me get ready for that. I wasn't prepared. Anyway, go to deadsoxy.com. You can do stocking stuffers. You got a weird relative or a goofy friend that always shows up with a gift. Go to deadsoxy.com. Get your purple and gold socks. Get your Christmas socks. Get your athletic socks, which I slept in last night, which I keep telling everybody to order. They're the best socks ever. Use the code Jordy. Get 30% off. Free shipping. No minimum. You still have time to get it here for Christmas. Deadsoxy.com.
What did you just say? A weird relative that does what now?
That shows up with a gift and you don't have anything in return.
For what?
Christmas.
I feel
What
like
do you mean for what?
Who's just bringing gifts that you're not prepared for?
Oh my God, this happens all the time. I keep backup gifts in my house, like a stack of them. Are you serious?
What? Wait.
Where?
What?
Because people just show up or run by and they're like, I have a gift. Like,
Oh, well,
Here's
you know
a
what
family
you know what
gift,
they're
or
doing.
you go to a party or something and you need a gift to give to that person.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So,
Not
like,
some
order
quirky aunt that shows up with a gift. Like,
Yeah, that happens.
Oh.
Like family gatherings. Like, come on.
see, I could see like the Christmas.
This doesn't happen to y'all.
No, I could see the Christmas party where it's like,
Yes.
they clearly stopped at the liquor store on the way here and brought a bottle of wine. You're like,
Exactly.
thank you.
Exactly.
But they're coming to your house. They're supposed.
Well-
It's like more of a housewarming gift than a Christmas.
Yeah,
gift.
if you're throwing a party.
Yeah.
But if it's just like a family get together, stock up on damn Dead Soxy socks and be prepared, damn it.
I feel like my
Use the
fam-
code Jordy for 30% off.
I feel like my family knows.
I don't
like,
think they'll
when you
love
get
this
shit
ad
from
read.
Lloyd.
Yeah, right.
I'll get them some socks now. Now I'm prepared.
There you go.
Raid the drawer
Get them some socks.
and find wherever you keep your gifts.
You'll never find
It's
where
not
I
the
keep my
safe. I
gifts.
saw it's in there.
What are we talking about?
Billy Embody is coming up here at 8 a.m. this morning. We are going to talk to Billy about some recruiting news. We'll see where LSU stands with some of the big names coming through over the next couple of days. And, of course, with early signing period, and this early signing period coming up in the next couple of days. It'll be actually here in 2 weeks from yesterday.
What will be here 2 weeks from
Sorry,
yesterday?
Is the 18th?
January 5th?
No, there's
Is that right?
The
That's
December.
3 weeks.
The December
signing
day.
period? I don't
Yeah.
know. I've
Yeah,
been portaling.
It is. It's
We have
next
41
week.
more days.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
it is
next
next
Wednesday.
week. Yeah.
You'll start to see some of these guys
we
take
have
shape.
Shea Dixon.
Yeah. So we'll see some
think
of
it's
the names that
Wednesday,
are going
right?
to start to pop. Yeah. Of who could sign with LSU. As we said, Brian Kelly and Frank Wilson and the crew taking in-home visits that you're seeing pop up all over social media right now. As they were in Taviano's home yesterday. They were also in with Caleb Jackson, the running back, earlier this week. Saw him with DJ Chester, who is the offensive lineman committed to him out of Florida. They're all over the place right now. So we'll talk to Billy Embody about all of the names. If you are curious about anybody within recruiting, if you're curious about some of the names coming up here for an early signing period that could be in LSU's class, and you want to get the questions over to Embody, just jump inside of the chat and hashtag Ask Billy, and we'll get your
Hashtag Billy Boy.
we will get your
Billy, sweet Billy boy.
we'll get your questions over to Billy
You
Embody.
know the rest of it?
Yes, I did.
knew that you'd go back. To what?
Don't I have a nice rack?
Don't I have a nice rack?
What is that?
From Billy
Billy
Madison.
Oh. I thought that was from Caddyshack.
I mean, it's all the same era of comedy, right?
It is, yeah,
like
I
they're all
guess
kind of
so.
doing the same thing. Because Katie's kids don't think Billy Madison's funny.
They didn't
No
think
way.
it was that funny. Yeah, it's not their humor.
Have you seen BK doing the?
He sings that song?
No. Have you seen this? Where he does the reverse L
No.
with the left
Wow.
hand. A little swaggy.
Wow.
It's like kind of holding the gun sideways.
The wrist twist.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
So if it's right-handed, oh, that's his left hand. So you have to flip it. So it's always an L instead of it being backwards. You figured
Yeah.
it out. Because at first he wouldn't do the L at all. He was like scared to get it wrong, and now he's like, I've got this thing figured out.
Yeah, somebody
So
taught
wait,
him.
you have to do,
Let
is
me
that
do
like
this
his
in the
left
mirror.
hand?
Yeah,
Yeah, backwards?
backwards. Yeah, so you
Golly, that is awkward to get
Wait,
there,
why not?
because then it has to.
though. Look, he taught DJ Chester's mom, too.
Yeah. She's doing it
He's-
too.
and it keeps popping up. Like a lot of recruits are doing this now with the left hand. So I think this is his move. Like he's patenting
Really?
it.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
never seen anyone else do that.
So
That's interesting.
it just depends on what side of
It
the
looks
picture
like a
you're
gang
on.
sign, kind of.
I
though,
know.
When you do it
I'm
backwards
in.
like that.
30 mils.
Right? West Side. What's that?
That's that.
No,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
that.
that's right. I used to do this in high school all the time.
Could you do the blood?
What are you doing?
You've never seen that where they do the BL
Oh, yeah,
double
you can
O?
spell it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was East Side? Oh, East Side was this way. Right?
Kitty, yep, you got it. You're
Speaking
about to join
of,
a
look
bunch
at
of gangs.
our Snoop on the stoop.
Yeah.
No one's even noticed it.
You're
I'm
gonna
sure
bring
people
together.
have.
You're bringing together the Crips and the Bloods.
Right.
West side, East side.
Wait.
Put them together.
Did you hear Sean Payton speaking?
Speaking
on-
of the West side,
he was speaking on a podcast yesterday as he was speaking on Tom Brady's podcast.
Oh.
Let's go.
you don't think they wanted to?
Yeah,
That
right.
puts so much more credence on the Miami Dolphins rumors that they
Oh,
were
dude,
both
that
going
thing was
there.
so true.
Yeah,
I mean, they got popped, really.
no doubt.
I mean, they got caught.
It's a dumb podcast name.
That's because Tom. That's what he says
Let's
before
go.
every game.
It's
I know,
hosted.
everyone does.
By Jim Gray is the host. Larry Fitzgerald is the co-host of it. I mean, talk about some star power. And then Tommy shows up every Sunday night, and they cut this podcast. And their latest guest was Sean Payton. Payton was speaking on whether or not he'll be back in coaching and when that could happen. Payton told Brady I think sooner rather than later. I really enjoy the current job I have, but I think relative to coaching, I know that I want to coach again, and it's not really been a secret, but I want to find the right spot. And as Tom alluded to, it's still about the people, because when it's all done and it's quiet, I don't think it's about the money or the crowd, the cheers or the trophies or any of that other stuff. It's all about the journey with the people that you really enjoy. So we'll kind of see what happens. But sooner than later, though, Payton said, in fairness to that question, I think that, if it's not this year, hopefully it'll be next year. The key for Payton finding, and that was Payton's quote to Tom Brady, and it seems like, really that the key to this is Payton finding the right situation that he wants to dive into. This feels like it's the Los Angeles Chargers. It feels like they were on a crash course to marrying one another here next. It's obviously in a place that Payton and his wife will enjoy to live. The more you learn about Payton and kind of the divorce from New Orleans, the more you learn that it was really about his wife being uneasy living in the city. There was an episode, I was down in New Orleans a couple of weeks back, and we were talking about Payton, and they were tight with Payton. It was a media member, and that Payton and his wife were at a dinner one evening in the city, and they had an uptown house that they had just built, a beautiful uptown house that Payton had really kind of built and put a lot of passion into. It was kind of like a dream home for him. He had all the money, got the contract, and he had a downtown condominium that he had been living in while he was single. But when they got married, he built this beautiful house uptown and was living in it for a while. And they went out to eat one night, and they got followed home in New Orleans, and supposedly his wife just felt very unsafe living in the city of New Orleans. And a lot what we talk about with high school recruiting and college football recruiting, where more and more you're seeing coaches show up on official visits and sit down in living rooms with data and paperwork on crime stats of other SEC towns. This is stuff that's really starting to be, brought up within recruiting and within college football. And you see it even now with New Orleans and the crime problems that they have, on it having effect on the professional franchise. Obviously, the coach had an issue, or his wife had an issue with just how, crime riddled the city was,
and
how
that's
unsafe.
the reason that he left the Saints.
What's
is
that?
What he's saying?
He has not said that.
Who said that?
But there's media members that are close to him
That
down in
said
New
that?
Orleans. That
And where are they
said-
living now?
I believe they live in Los Angeles.
So I don't buy that.
You don't
Like,
buy
she
that?
felt unsafe in New Orleans, but go to Los Angeles and she's fine.
Oh, I mean, I can't speak for her,
Yeah,
but I
don't
mean,
know about all that.
I
Who,
can
the remodel?
I can speak for being in New Orleans
I
a
know,
lot,
but
and
I
that
mean-
that place is not safe.
No, but
at
neither is
all.
LA.
Yeah, but I mean, you can get to certain sections of LA where you're safer than.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, and I'm
What?
sure where
Just go to
Sean
Beverly
Payton.
Hills.
I'm sure where Sean Payton
to
built
the
that
Garden District.
built his house in New Orleans, in that part,
Yeah.
up by Audubon,
Yeah.
was where he lived.
I
But
just
I mean,
find it hard to believe.
Gail
a wife,
Benson got carjacked 2 blocks from her house
right.
in New Orleans.
But
So
she's
I mean,
not leaving.
Well, I mean,
Her
she
business
can't
is here.
leave.
But don't you find it hard to believe that a coach would make a decision to leave based on his wife not being happy living
No,
somewhere?
I think it's an easy out for Sean Payton.
Totally.
I think it's an easy out for Sean Payton, but I do believe that that's an argument with your wife that you can't win. Mm-hmm. If she feels unsafe in the town that you're working in, and you have the means and the reputation to retire and get right back into a community that we feel safe and want to live in, then I think it's a fight that Sean Payton says, look, we can just retire and move somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if it was about that, I don't think it was solely about that, but I think that probably had a lot to do with it. I mean, What did Drew Brees do? The first thing that he did when he retired, moved to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like you would think that a guy like Brees, who has the feel of like Archie Manning,
Yeah.
right? Like Archie Manning, once he lived in New Orleans, he never left.
Right.
Right? You would think that a guy like Brees, with the reputation that he has, I mean, he would never pay for anything in that city for the
Right.
rest of his life. As soon as the day he retired, he got his kids out of school, sold his house. You know, I mean, I think he put his name on that Four Seasons townhome just to
Yeah,
kind of
he
help
bought him a
I think it
residence.
kind of help that guy out.
Yeah.
I think he was an investor in
Right.
that. But I mean, you know, they're long gone from New Orleans. You know, I mean, it's I believe that. I mean, I don't believe that that's the sole reason why Sean Payton's not there.
Yeah.
But I believe that out of nowhere, people were like, "Damn, that was quick."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there are still a lot of people who are like, you kind of had the rug pulled out from under him.
Yeah.
You know, like in New Orleans, like people within the franchise. I mean, specifically, I don't want to do rumor radio, man, but I think like for a while there, like Mickey Loomis and the crew were like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, like, damn, that was kind of out of nowhere.
Right.
You know? So,
I hear you. I just think that is kind of an excuse.
This is
What?
interesting. Sean Payton was sued for declining to sell. He had agreed in principle to sell his house in Florida in 2021. In 2022, he reneged on the sale of $7 million, and now he's getting sued. So that just puts more credence to the Miami rumors that he was probably didn't think he was like ever going to coach there. All of that stuff comes together. He's like, oh, I have a house down there. He was going to sell it. Now I want to keep it. And now he had to sell it again because he didn't get the job.
Yeah.
And now he's getting sued. So Sean Payton he has houses everywhere is all I was saying.
He
But
does.
that's interesting.
He does.
But that was they were trying to tie together why, if that's why he left the Saints or not.
Yeah.
This is all public knowledge. I'm not making
Right.
it up.
Right. I didn't think you were making it up.
Bilbo Baggins, Jordy, trying to put down other teams can be seen as Bush League move by people who see through it. If you're a recruiter, you should spend more time hyping up your own team. I get it. But I mean, in a lot of some of these, in the majority of these recruiting conversations, it comes down to just some of the little things. I mean, because Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Texas A&M, I mean, hell, even Ole Miss and Arkansas to a degree, they're all selling the same thing. I mean, they're all pitching this great experience, play on Saturday, high-level coaching, high-level facilities, high-level, education, academic. They're going to graduate you. They're guaranteeing you pretty much that you're going to graduate. I mean, they're all selling a lot of the same stuff. But if I'm selling the same thing that Alabama is, and Alabama walks in and says, have you seen the crime rate in Baton Rouge? Do you know that, 1 out of every 4, that this is, if they start to say that, I mean, it hits home with 1, 2 moms who say, hey, if my son has a choice to go to Tuscaloosa or Baton Rouge, and he's leaving my home, and I can't see him for the next 4 years every single day, I want him in the safer place. I mean, some of those conversations come down to that granular of a detail being part of the decision process. I'm not saying that it's winning every recruiting war, but I do know for certain that they're being brought up within the home. If you, disagree with the tactic, well, I mean, that's how you feel about it. But I'm just telling you that's happening, and it's happening every single day in recruiting, and the worse the crime gets in South Louisiana, in Baton Rouge and New Orleans specifically, the more it's going to be used against them when you get into competitive type of stuff like recruiting college football players. Daily, we're brought to you by City Cafe, citycafebr.net. Stop in and see our friends Squeaky Miranda, Cody Miranda, and the crew over there on O'Neill and George O'Neill, where they've been in business for over 100 years. They got daily lunch specials over at City Cafe. Check out City Cafe's menu online at citycafebr.net, where good friends meet, where good friends hang out and go to eat. Online, citycafebr.net, and as we said, on the corner of O'Neill and George O'Neill, shout out to Squeaky Miranda, Cody Miranda, and everybody over there with the crew. And tell them you heard it here on the Jordy Culotta show. So Sean Payton's going to be back in coaching, and I don't think that surprises a lot of people here. I think that when he made his retirement announcement with New Orleans, there was a lot of undertones that he was going to be back pretty quick, or he not necessarily that this was going to be the end of the coaching line for him. Right now, I would place the odds on favorite of him being the Los Angeles Chargers head coach next season.
6-6.
Yep. Continuing to struggle, continuing to give ways to fire their head coach.
He does it to himself.
Brandon
Staley.
Brandon Staley.
He loves to
think
go
it'll
for
be
2
Dallas?
and go for 4.
You think that's out of the rumor mill?
I think
Oh,
Dallas
sure.
has a chance. You know, Dallas is courting Odell Beckham right now, and I love OBJ.
I do too.
Like let the record state, I'm a huge Odell fan. I loved covering him in high school. He was so electric at Newman. When he got to LSU, he was a freaky athlete. I remember catching Odell his freshman season in the dungeon. He was down there with some of those guys, and Malachi Dupree was down there as a young high schooler who was still at John Curtis, and he was still playing basketball for John Curtis, but they were playing pickup basketball in the dungeon going into Odell's freshman season. Like he had just gotten to campus. He had just gotten here. And it was that summer, and there were basketball guys, football guys, there were track guys. There were all types of athletes down there. And Odell was playing, and, I mean, he was just so far advanced from – I mean, he was jumping over people, dunking the ball in between games. He was doing, like, crazy throw it off the backboard, behind the back dunks. I mean, he was so skilled with his left hand. He could volley the ball with his feet like a soccer ball. I mean, his hands looked like alien hands. I mean, they looked fake on him when he's just like standing there. But when he holds a basketball, I mean, he makes it look almost like he's holding a tennis ball in his hand. I mean, I just remember thinking, this is such a freaky athlete. And I didn't know that much about him, but then to watch him explode at LSU, go on to the early days of his career in the NFL to where he is now. I mean, it's just been so fun to watch him grow. And truthfully, I think whatever sport he would have chosen, I mean, like he could have been a soccer player, a basketball player. Hell, he probably could have been a great center field leadoff batter in a baseball team. He would have been successful at. He chose to be football. He was a first-round pick. He was an All-American. He won the first ever Paul Hornung Award in college football, which went to and still goes to the most versatile player. I mean, the guy that can affect the game in the most amount of ways, and Odell was that guy. I don't get the buzz for Odell now. Like,
what do you mean?
Like, why is there so much fanfare for these recruitment of Odell? Like, he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
He's 2 knee surgeries in. He's a lot more injuries than the 2 knees that he's already had surgically repaired. And he's nowhere near the player where he was even a couple of years ago. I mean, he is, to me, comparable to an NBA's version of Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
I mean, Derrick Rose was just a freaky athlete amongst freaky athletes.
Yeah.
He was kind of the alpha in the room of guys that just jumped higher and ran faster and just did things naturally where you were like, good Lord. I mean, how are you doing that against these people? And Odell has that feel to him. I mean, I think
it's like a celebrity status type.
I think
thing
it is.
for him.
I think it's
That
his brand.
helps a lot.
I think that's what it is. I mean, did you see him at the Dallas Mavericks
That's what I was
game
gonna
last
say.
night?
He was with Diggs and Parsons, and I mean, he was like a superstar, and they chanted.
The whole
for
state, the whole place is chanting OBJ.
Yeah.
I mean, and like
And
Jerry
they
Jones
egged
is
it
like
on,
talking
like,
about him like he.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, okay, if you're hiring Odell to bring attention, to grow your brand, to bring spotlight to what you have going on, he's the guy. But are we still talking about him as a football player?
I don't know.
This?
I mean, he met with their medical staff, but there were no quotes on like what that was like. I mean, they covered every other moment of his visit to Dallas, but just said that he met with the medical staff, but then didn't give any details on that. So I don't know. But I mean, there's got to be something there.
I mean, I guess. And look, to see him perform the way he did in the Super Bowl last year was awesome. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you hated to see 2 minutes after he caught that touchdown, I mean, he blew his knee out again.
Yeah. And
for the style of player that he is, 2 knee surgeries in.
I think they think that
I think
he
it's over.
meshes really well with Dak.
I mean, who wouldn't?
I mean, that's what Jerry said.
I mean, like, I get it, Jerry.
They see something.
But I mean, Jer, I know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
I know what you see.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, I know what you're looking at, man. I mean, nobody's counting on Odell. And look, if he has a resurgence, I'll be the first to say I will be shocked.
Right.
Shocked if he has some type of late career Pro Bowl type season where he puts together numbers. Mm-hmm. It would be shocking to me just because, I mean, look, man, he's playing a young man's game on old man legs.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's 30, right?
But in the NFL standards, 30 is ancient.
I guess.
I mean, you're elderly.
Look at old Tom and Aaron and company.
But if they could stand behind they're not getting hit like Odell is. I mean, they're not putting the amount of pressure on their body that Odell is. Look, I'm not excusing playing quarterback in the NFL. You still have a chance to get killed out there.
Yeah.
Looks good.
He looks great physically.
He does.
You know what I mean? Like that's not that, but that's not the argument. Like physically at 30, you're still going to be shredded.
Yeah.
As Odell Beckham, but you're not going to be able to just roll out of bed and run a 4.3 like he did. You're not going to be able to catch a slant and run away from defensive backs in the league. You're not going to be able to jump over people and take it off their head like he's been doing his whole life. If I'm hiring Odell Beckham Jr. as a 30-year-old, 2 knee surgeries in, I'm expecting him to be my 3rd, 4th maybe option who's going to give me 30 catches a season and 5 or 6 touchdowns. I mean, I'm not putting this type of I'm not getting 2014, 2015, 2016 OBJ.
And that depends. I guess that's what you get when you ask, like, what are you paying for?
Yeah.
Because you have to pay for Odell the brand a little bit as well.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm mesmerized by like New York, like he's going on New York tours and he's going in Buffalo. I mean, last night in Dallas, they rolled the red carpet out for this cat, and I get it.
Recruited.
I get it. Like, I mean, I understand that he's that type of star. You know, he has that type of cachet with him, but if you're promoting and courting the brand, okay, I got you. I mean, I got it.
Well, he didn't work out for the Giants or the Bills, but I think he's working out for Dallas.
I mean, it feels like this is Dallas.
It does, because they're saying, like, if everything checks out with his knee, like the surgically repaired knee, then the next step will be the financial talk.
And that's what they said, right? Didn't the doctors come out and say they don't think he's physically ready to play football?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I just read that if it checks out, they're going to move on.
No, it came out, I believe, yesterday.
Okay.
That they don't think that he's ready, which I think is a game by Jerry to get everybody off of Odell so he can sign him, and so you don't have to pay him as much.
Yeah.
Because when you see Odell, like he's been working out, and I know it'd be a quick turnaround. It's only 10 months out of ACL surgery.
Yeah.
But Odell is
on the heels of on the first one. I mean, that happened bang bang.
But I think what you see is people. It took a while for him to catch on in Los Angeles, but when it did, it was like, oh, Odell's back. Like you get, but like you said, obviously that was pre-knee injury in the Super Bowl, but people still that was the last thing they saw was Odell being back, physically explosive, can make a difference on your team and help you win a Super Bowl. And if you're going on that type of run, or Dallas thinks they are, sign Odell.
I know.
He will look super swaggy in a Cowboys uniform.
Oh, my God.
That's what I was.
I'm so
the
here
amount of
for it.
merch they're going to sell.
Oh, my God.
Odell in 3.
I mean, I'll be first in
star.
line buying it all.
And how swaggy he's going to look. How good are his cleats going to look? Because, you know, him and Nike are done.
And you see, yeah.
I mean, they're in a big lawsuit.
Because,
big lawsuit.
Yeah, they wouldn't change his colorway, so he did it himself.
Right.
And then they
so
said that's
saying
a breach of contract.
They're saying that he tampered with the gear, which breached his contract.
And he's like, I do that. I've been doing that for years.
Well, they shorted him, what, like $30 million?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
substantial.
It is a big number and a big lawsuit. There's a lot of people within the industry that are paying attention to it, too. And, I mean, I'd love to see what he wears now.
I know.
Like, what's he going to wear?
I can't wait. I hope it happens. Odell and Dak would be like a dream to me.
It's happening.
I mean, they have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Noah Brown. Like, I don't even know who these people are. Jalen Tolbert.
You don't know who CeeDee Lamb is?
I know who CeeDee Lamb is. I know who Michael Gallup is. But if you want CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Odell Beckham, now I'll ride with that.
Yeah.
Like, if you would just go straight off names, like, I don't know who Michael Tolbert is or Jalen Tolbert.
Wait, Jalen Tolbert played at
South Alabama.
Oh, okay. I was about to say Alabama. Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. They need a guy. They need a third guy.
Yeah.
And Odell can fit that bill if he can play.
That'd be great.
Did you see Kyrie with his shoes? He got released from his Nike contract.
Did he?
I'll show you the picture. He put a free, like, what's next on the shoe over the Nike colorway. He's played great, though, but he's just a crazy person.
Remember, Daily, we're brought to you by Katie's Restaurant, our friends Katie's Restaurant over in New Orleans. Stop in and see them if you're down there this weekend and you are heading to the Dome. If you're headed to the state championship games, if you're going to watch some of the state finals with the LHSAA state championship football games, stop in and see our friends over at Katie's Restaurant, Iberville Street, down in New Orleans. A great location, great neighborhood restaurant with a fantastic menu. Stop in and check out the St. Louis style pizza, the thin crust. Check out the Bradbird for all you meat lovers over at Katie's. Sister restaurant Francesca's downtown as well. Great sandwich shop. Online, katiesinmidcity.com. katiesinmidcity.com. 8 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to Billy Embody. Zach Ewing's going to be through here. Give us some of the picks and what we're looking out for here on this NFL weekend. No college football this weekend.
Isn't that weird?
Oof.
I guess I'll watch the NFL.
Weird.
A brutal one, man.
This is Kyrie's shoe.
Oh, okay.
He's just an odd bird.
Yeah.
Thank you, God. I am.
I am. It's right out of room.
It does look like that.
I mean, the handwriting.
Eam.
Yeah, did he just write that on there? With a
I
gold
am.
paint pen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he had to cover up the Nike.
Okay.
Like, he had to paint over it.
Yeah.
Because you could see where the check was.
Yeah, you can.
And he's got a little piece of shoe
I guess that's
here.
what, athletic tape?
And it looks like it.
I mean, it did a pretty good job with it, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Like,
I
covering
guess.
that up.
I mean,
Shoes are great, though.
what do
People
you-
love the Kyries.
I know they do. So, like, what do you do if you're that athlete? Do you just, like, start wearing, like, Adidas?
I think he's going to keep doing this.
Surely someone
He's
else.
got to have something up the sleeve,
Has
right?
to.
You got to have something in the coffer, but I don't know. I guess he comes out with the big baller brand. But you have to have something. Like, I guess.
Yeah. You
I
can't
guess you
just
could-
keep covering up the check.
Right, and I guess if you wear Adidas, you just wear them for free. Like, you know,
Yeah, that's what
you
I'm
don't,
saying.
you won't have a deal.
But,
with
like,
anybody.
he can't wear Nike.
No, I wouldn't think so. Well, he can, but I guess he'd wear them for free.
Yeah.
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 I'm sure he doesn't
Which, he,
want
I
to.
mean, he's not going to do that.
I'm sure Nike
No.
doesn't want him doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure they don't.
So that's probably his play.
Yeah.
It just pissed them off.
Probably talk to Odell.
All right, 8 o'clock hour. We're going to talk to Billy Embody. Get your recruiting questions in. We will talk to Embody next here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.
Looking to book a dumpster but no idea how? We've made it quick and easy for you. Check out our website at moralesrolloffs.com. Let Morales Roll-Offs know your desired delivery date and finally, provide your contact details. To make payment, look out for an email invoice with all your booking details. On delivery day, our driver will notify you through text and email that your dumpster is ready and on the way. Now you know how easy and convenient it is. Call Morales Roll-Offs at 225-427-0000 for your dumpster.
Hey Baton Rouge, when traveling through Natchez, Mississippi, whether you need to fill up your vehicle or your belly, stop by Go-Mart and On The Go Deli. Go-Mart has clean restrooms, community coffee, an awesome beer cave, and a great selection of anything you might need on your trip. So stop by Go-Mart at 4 Sergeant Prentice Drive as you're entering Natchez on the left, and visit Tom and Wright Granning and their awesome team at Go-Mart.
Don't let the name fool you. Men's Total Health has offerings for the ladies, too. Guys, is your wife or partner suffering from urinary incontinence, low sexual desire, or pain during sex? Then the O shot might be for her. Don't let it scare you. It's totally natural. It's PRP, and Mike Roach and the crew at Men's Total Health will make you as comfortable as you can be. Contact me for more information, Katie at JordyCulottaShow.com, and I'm happy to tell you everything that Men's Total Health has to offer for the ladies.
Donaldsonville Glass and Body, the trusted name in frame, body, and automotive paint repair since 1977. They have served their customers for over 45 years. You can find them online at dgbauto.com or stop in and see them Railroad Avenue and Division Street out in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Look, they can help you with your insurance claims. They can make the repair process as stress-free as possible. I'm speaking from experience here. I've got numerous windshields, body repair, all done by Kenny and the crew over at Donaldsonville Glass and Body. They are, without question, the most well-equipped shop in the area. Stop in and see them today. Shop them online, dgbauto.com, or stop in and see the crew over in Division Street in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Donaldsonville Glass and Body. Hey fellas, it's Jordy Culotta for my friends over at Men's Total Health. Guys, do you suffer from fatigue, decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, weight gain or loss of muscle mass, signs of depression, anxiety, hair loss, mental fog, general loss of interest? Then you might be suffering from low testosterone. Go see my friend Mike Roach and his great team over at Men's Total Health, over in Metairie at menstotalhealth.net online. And stop in and see how they can change your life today. A simple shot and some knowledge from Mike Roach can get you back up, moving with your energy, get your sex drive back, build your muscle mass, make you feel young again. All online, menstotalhealth.net. Red Stick Sports, a local staple in Baton Rouge to all sports fans, was founded back in 1981 and has remained a family business for over 40 years. Today, they still have the great selection on the floor, but they're also a leader in custom apparel for businesses, sports teams, and other groups. Take it from us, everybody over here at FM Digital Media. They help us out with all of our apparel. Let them help you out today. Go ask for Cody over at Red Stick Sports. Check him out online at redsticksports.biz. I was embarrassed about my smile. Are you unhappy at yours? Do you not smile back at yourself? I called my friend, Dr. Spillers, over at Johnson Spillers. He fixed my smile, and now everywhere I go, people are complimenting it after the work that Dr. Spillers and the staff did to my mouth. They can do it to yours. Get in touch with them. JohnsonSpillers.com. 2 locations, one in Gonzales, one in Baton Rouge. Easy to find them, JohnsonSpillers.com. Man, welcome back to a Jordy Culotta show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. A lot of recruiting news coming up here as we're in the teeth of it. First of the signing days coming up here next week as LSU looking to be very active. We'll dive into it with one of our favorites from On3. You can follow him at Billy Embody on Twitter. He's here with us regularly talking recruiting. Welcome back, Billy. How are you?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Doing good.
Shave or no shave before I show
I'm
him.
saying no. I'm saying no shave.
Ooh.
Christmas time.
Yes.
Damn, Billy. I went with you too, though. I know what you mean. It's still hot down here. All right, Bill. So a lot of social media popping up. Frank Wilson's in home. Brian Kelly's in home. Let's start with some of the headliners here, and that is Javion Taviano, who a lot of people are paying attention to. Where does LSU stand with him?
Yeah, Javion Toviano out of Arlington Martin in Texas is one of their top remaining targets, and he's now set to announce on December 15th. And he's got Georgia, LSU, Michigan, Texas, and Texas A&M in that final grouping. And it's one of those recruitments that, I mean, how can he not end up going to LSU unless he quietly goes somewhere else under the radar at this late in the game? He's only been on LSU's campus this fall. He's been to 2 games, and then he was also at Bayou Splash. He checked out Texas and Texas A&M on neutral site games, but that's been it. He didn't show up in Austin for their game against TCU. He didn't even show up again for Texas A&M LSU, which some thought that would even make sense for him to show up if he was leaning LSU's way to make a visit down there and see LSU play. But now he released his commitment date, December 15th. He's said for a while he knows where he wants to go. All signs point to LSU, but he's just never named a leader. He's never been one to really look at it and name a top school. And he's not been a silent commit anywhere from what we've been told by multiple sources. So Brian Kelly, Robert Steeples, they went in home. They've got another visit to use with Robert Steeples next week if they would like it. But he is set to announce on December 15th, and right now it's tough not to pick LSU.
If he chooses LSU, what type of player do they get?
Somebody who's physically ready to go. I think he's somebody that really has that physical edge to his game on top of being just one of the more physically developed players in this class of secondary players in the 2023 cycle. Speed is not necessarily what he's known for. He's not a burner, but he does have some explosiveness to his game. He does have good change of direction. I've seen him multiple times in multiple settings, and he's displayed that. I think he brings some position versatility. LSU's recruiting him at corner. We've seen LSU bring in a guy like Mekhi Garner, a bigger guy, and play him at corner. And I think that would be the plan for Javion Toviano, but I think he could also move over to safety if they needed him to as well. So a very versatile player, a guy who has high football IQ. He's a very smart young man. He's been well researched in this process. I'd be surprised if he didn't end up at LSU based on all the information we have, but he's been so mum on what his true intentions are that there is that kind of intrigue for if he will end up somewhere else by chance.
Billy, a few weeks ago, LSU caught some news that a couple of defensive line commits, Deron Reed and Josh Mickens, were decommitting from the program. What do you read into there, and how do they replace these guys?
Yeah, Deron Reed leaving was a tough one because, Auburn just hasn't spent any NIL money in the last year and a half. And to kind of jumpstart their recruiting, they looked 45 minutes down the road at a top 50 defensive tackle prospect out of a school that they know well, and went all in. And that was kind of it. And it sucks sometimes that it comes down to that, but that's the reality of some recruits here and there. But he visited Auburn and he visited LSU. He had been committed to LSU for quite some time, and it was just something that they just couldn't overcome in the end. They'll be active in the portal looking for defensive tackles. They're also swinging away at some big names like 4-star defensive tackle Jordan Hall and Oregon commit Amari Washington down the stretch here, trying to change that around. And then they also sent out a new offer to a February signee in Jamel Howard on Tuesday, I believe. They sent that one out, and he is up in Chicago. He's kind of been a big riser. Michigan and Nebraska and some of these other programs have offered him as of late. So it'll be interesting to see if they get him to visit maybe in January, if they do miss on some targets and bring in a big body. As far as Josh Mickens, his dad passed away last January, and I just think it's been really tough on the family. And so when Ohio State jumped into the mix and had been keeping in contact with him, letting him know that an offer could be on the way, I think just the 2.5-hour drive to Columbus kind of made sense for him and his family to still get a high level of college football and coaching, from Larry Johnson up there. And certainly the proximity really just pushed that one in that favor.
Bill, the class already has a couple of wide receiver commits in it, including Shelton Sampson and Jalen Brown, a pair of 5-stars. Kyle Parker's the other wide out in this group, along with Kai Preon. Parker's going to be an early enrollee, and saw Brian Kelly and Cortez Hankton over at his house earlier this week. What type of player is Parker?
I think Kyle is I think he is the most polished receiver in this commitment class. I mean, he's somebody that's been living in Texas for most of his life. His family's from New Orleans, and he's spent time with trainers and 7-on-7 coaches in, Texas high school football. And that's just, it's kind of a different level of training. It's like you're a pro. I mean, you go over to Lovejoy High School where he plays, and they've got, an indoor facility, and they've got 2 artificial turf practice fields and a full football stadium that's huge and a nice facility. I mean, that's the type of attention he gets day in, day out. So it's tough for him to not be the most ready from a route running and all the intricacies of running routes at the college level, especially. There's just a lot of, it's kind of becomes an art in a way when these guys get to the next level, when players are also polished in their craft. So I think he can contribute right away, maybe in the slot. He can also be your kick returner, punt returner. He's very explosive in that regard. He's taken a few punts and kick returns back for touchdowns for Lovejoy over the course of his career. He has a chance to really just be somebody that they move around, maybe even put him at running back here and there, and just if they do play with some tempo, they can kind of get him some quick handoffs, and he can cut it up for a gain and do some different things with him. He's just versatile. He's about 5'11 and a half, 185 pounds, and again, physically developed, ready to go. So he probably doesn't have the best upside out of the 4 receivers they have committed. I would say Shelton Sampson and Jalen Brown probably have that, but he is probably the most polished and ready to go right away.
Desmond Ricks will visit LSU on December 22nd. Everybody's paying attention to that date. He's coming off of a visit to Florida. Where does LSU stand with the number 1 cornerback in the country?
Yeah, I think they sit as the team to beat. And you look at his recruitment, and it's now been narrowed down to really the 3 schools he's visited the most: Florida, Alabama, and LSU. I don't believe there's going to be some surprise by like a Miami at this point. But he is going to check out Alabama this weekend and then go to LSU next weekend. Nick Saban went in home with him already. Billy Napier went in home with him already. Brian Kelly at some point will spend that in home with him as well. This is going to be a very interesting decision as well, kind of in the JVN Toviano boat. We know NIL is going to factor in with Desmond Ricks more so than Toviano, but LSU's the team to beat. Everything they've presented to him, from what I'm hearing out of his camp, sounds like the place to be. They've got playing time right away. They've got, DBU. Jordan Arsamo has been involved with his recruitment since way back when he was an 8th grader in Virginia. So this is somebody that they've done a really good job recruiting and making him feel at home, bringing all that NIL stuff together, making sure that is all in place will be the final piece. And I think these in-home visits and the official visits across the board for all these schools will determine that, and we'll see if there's any shift down the stretch.
From an offensive line standpoint, we saw him visiting with DJ Chester, who is a commitment. The latest one was Brad Davis and Brian Kelly in home with him yesterday, I believe. How many more targets at that position do they have, Billy? And how do you like the way that this class is shaped up on the heels of finding a group that has 2 starters already in Campbell and Jones?
Yeah, I don't know how many more targets they're going to have. They probably have some guys they're working on the flip department, looking around like Texas A&M, TJ Shanahan and Chase Besantis, but I haven't heard much buzz around those guys. But they do have a really good class committed in the 4 that they have. With DJ Chester, Auburn and Hugh Freeze went in home with him earlier this week, the day before Brad Davis and Brian Kelly were there. And Jake Thornton, the new Auburn offensive line coach, is somebody that DJ Chester really respects from Ole Miss, his time at Ole Miss, and now he's at Auburn. So they're going to be one to watch here again. But all the indications are that we're getting is things went well on that in-home visit. We're set to catch up with DJ Chester and his camp and try to see, where exactly things stand and if they will take a final unofficial visit somewhere else that final weekend. But he's slated to go to Florida State this weekend. We'll see if that happens. But they've done a really good job kind of checking off all the boxes that they can to make sure they're in the best position to close him out and get him to sign early.
How about from the quarterback standpoint here? You anticipate getting Ricky Collins in, and what do you make of this quarterback room right now, Billy? I've kind of called it the golden age of LSU quarterback with the way that they've recruited it the last couple of cycles and what the couple of future cycles look like. What's your point of view?
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, and whenever you have a room that has been built up now to this, I mean, there were some classes in there that were really, really bad in the past, but now it is at a place where, it's one of the best rooms in the country, at least from a recruiting rankings and talent perspective. I like to say that multiple things can be true at once. You can have probably Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard in their camps, like looking around and saying, okay, all right, if Jaden Daniels comes back, what do we want to do? Let's assess our situation. If Garrett Nussmeier transfers, Walker Howard, slides into that number 2 spot. If Garrett Nussmeier returns, if Jaden Daniels returns, Walker Howard would, still be in that kind of reserve role, or at least battling for the number 2 spot. And then you're going to bring in Ricky Collins, who I would expect to redshirt, his first year on campus. He'll be an early enrollee. There are all these conversations with all 3 of these quarterbacks that are on campus and their families around, for Jaden Daniels, maybe the draft, or, for Garrett Nussmeier, Walker Howard, maybe a transfer. But those are all conversations that at the end of every year, with how premium that position is and how limited the playing time is, if you aren't the starter, you have to have, no matter if you love LSU, if you love Brian Kelly, if you love Mike Denbrock and their plan for you, and Joe Sloan, those are conversations you just have to have. So I think sometimes it gets completely blown out of proportion during some of these off-season discussions as, people try to assess their situations. Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard, they have that free transfer still. So that goes for multiple positions across the board. At wide receiver, there's a lot of mouths to feed. There are 4 receivers coming into this 2023 recruiting class, and they're going to take some snaps. I'm sure there's other guys, Jack Besh left this week. I'm sure there's other guys that are having conversations with their families and saying, all right, is this the place we need to be and want to be, even if we do love it? So I think a lot of things can be true at once. You can be in a great situation as a room. Some of those guys, can be looking around and kind of asking themselves if they do want to stay on. And at the end of the day, they could very well stay on. And because it's a quarterback position, I think it gets talked about a lot more. Whereas some of these other positions, people just kind of don't even realize that maybe those conversations are even happening with some of the players.
Nicholas Harbor was a big name early on in this process that everybody was paying attention to. LSU will still get an official from him. He's a track star that people are recruiting to as well. What's going on with his recruitment, and what's the latest?
Yeah, he's somebody that has now seen Georgia kind of jump into the mix. Miami's kind of hanging around. Michigan is still in there. South Carolina, Maryland, and LSU. And LSU has pretty much been one of the most consistent ones in his recruitment. I would say Michigan as well. But look, they're going to get him on campus in January, sandwiched between his All-American Bowl appearances and his I think he's got a Polynesian Bowl, so he's going to head out to Hawaii later that month. So he'll hit Baton Rouge in between those games. And he's always maintained that he's going to take that official visit. And I think that's something that people forget, where he hasn't been able to make it to campus for a game. He hasn't been able to come in for an unofficial visit before. I mean, this summer he was competing in all the track competitions, and I think he visited Texas Tech at one point because that was where one of the national track tournaments was, and people kind of made a big deal of it. But no, he's an Olympic hopeful, in track and field. So you've got to remember that his schedule has been dominated by this for so much. He's only made a few officials and a few unofficials over the course of this fall. So I think he's very much in the wait and see mode on his recruitment. I think LSU is going to have a chance to really knock it out of the park between the track and football staffs. Jamar Cain's done a really good job here. They've got a plan for him both at edge and tight end. Both are positions of need. And then the track and field staff has done a terrific job. They have the closest relationship probably out of any staff on either side of athletics out of anyone. They've done just that good of a job recruiting him. I think they're a big reason why they're still in it. And I think he could see a future at LSU, which is why he's going to check it out for an official visit. If things go well, it would not shock me at all to see him sign in February with LSU. But, you're also watching a team like a Georgia, Maryland, even some of these schools are going to be desperate. Yep, Michigan. Exactly.
Jay Ward announced yesterday he's leaving for the NFL. I don't think that surprised a lot of people, but what type of not pressure, but what type of emphasis does that put on defensive backfield recruiting, and where do they stand in that department, both high school and transfer portal?
Yeah, a 4-star safety, Isaac Smith, out of Mississippi, is going to officially visit, I believe, the same weekend as Desmond Ricks, December 16th. So he's going to come into campus. He's a Mississippi native. Mississippi State is in there for him. I believe Ole Miss has gotten ruled out, but I might have that wrong. I haven't had 2 cups of coffee yet. But he is a really talented player. Does it on both sides of the ball, productive as a running back, productive as a defensive back, and a really, really good player. You turn on the film and he brings it. So they're targeting him to kind of round out that safety bunch in the high school ranks, and then we'll see kind of how the transfer portal goes. As everybody's been following it, it's been kind of a little methodical on that front, and they've been kind of piecing together some offers here and there. And I think the safety room is one that they'll take a look at for sure, based on Jay Ward leaving and just kind of where it's at overall as a group. So kudos to Jay Ward, by the way. He's moved around. I think he's got a good chance to end up pretty well in the draft. A lot of people are shocked Cordell Flott went up as high as he did, but Jay Ward brings a lot of versatility, and the NFL loves that. So, best wishes to him.
Amen.
Absolutely. You mentioned a little bit of the transfer portal, and LSU needs some help in the cornerback room. Tony Grimes recently entered the portal from North Carolina, 5-star. I read that LSU sent him an offer. Is this official?
I haven't seen the offer go out on his Twitter, but I do know I saw the list of schools that have contacted him and are really starting to pursue him, and it is a laundry list of schools that are in there for Tony Grimes, as one would expect. And I think he's somebody that had some LSU interest during his recruitment, and it didn't end up kind of going that way in the end. And I think they ended up missing out on his top 4 or something like that. But he's interested now, from what I heard. We'll see kind of where things go as he starts to sift through this recruitment. It's going to be a wild one. Dominic Lovett at wide receiver is probably the best available wide receiver in the transfer portal right now. And he is somebody that is kind of slowly taking that process day by day. He's finishing up his finals. But LSU is a school that I've heard has reached out, and plenty of other schools have as well. So some of these guys are letting all the attention and offers come in with their family, helping them out. And then they're also kind of getting ready to then make the cut and figure out what they best need, to go and look at in terms of visiting.
Last one, Bill, get you out of here. Transfer portal. How do you see them attacking this? Are there specific names, positions, and when do you start to see some of these names start to fall?
The big question is when do we see names start to fall? And I think that's going to really be interesting, because it's this long 45-day window, and you can take your visits starting today. And some of these players went into the portal maybe knowing where they were going to go. Some of them didn't. We'll see some more names pop up. We're seeing them pop up this morning already. They did go after a defensive tackle in Western Michigan's Braden Fisk. They did offer Braden Swinson out of Oregon, an edge prospect who Jamar Cain is familiar with. They also went and checked on Kyle Morlock, the shorter college tight end. That was their first offer. So they're starting to kind of churn on some of these offers and go after some of these players. it's just kind of a case-by-case basis. You can't, really predict it. It's as wild as you would think. And so I think it's going to be a wild ride. There are some players that we're never going to hear about in terms of getting an offer, but they'll have had an offer and they'll visit. Sometimes we'll hear about that. Sometimes we won't, but it's just the Wild West out here. People are trying to deceive and not, give out too much info because the stakes are so high. And if somebody hears LSU's, going in on such and such player, they're going to try to change that. And it goes for, if LSU hears about certain players too.
There is one that people are really curious about, and that's Denver Harris. Obviously, his stepdad has ties to LSU and Tack Minor. His name is officially in the transfer portal. Have you heard anything on where LSU stands and what the interest may be?
I haven't heard too much. I would say Denver ran into a real tough freshman year out in College Station. And I would say that LSU is going to have to do a lot of research on him and kind of dive into that aspect as they're trying to build the culture and things like that. I haven't heard too much about them going after him at this point. He's very, very talented, but he's also run into a lot of issues out there in College Station. So we'll see. There's a structure of a culture which you would like to bet on, but there's also some times where maybe you don't need to risk that at times. So very talented player, but very early on with them, and we'll see if they end up pushing for him. He would be an instant impact guy right away if he was able to put it all together.
Jeff Brom just took the job at Louisville. One of their big running back commits is Reuben Owens out of Texas, and he flips immediately to Texas A&M with a pretty stellar announcement. How big was that for A&M?
Well, look, I think a lot of people have been talking about A&M losing their entire 2022 class and transfer city and who's it's open season on A&M commits and all of these things. That school just doesn't stop. Like they're not going to give up. I mean, we've seen it. They've been in the SEC for so long, and they just keep spending and spending and spending, and it ends up kind of the same. I mean, this year was a huge drop off, but they are not going to stop stockpiling talent. And even Payton Bowen, teammate with Ryan Yates, he's got A&M right up there. He's 5-star safety. Wouldn't shock me if they got him as well during the early signing period. So A&M's not done. They're hanging around for a lot of prospects, and we'll see how they close. But Reuben Owens was a good start for them. And once he decommitted from Louisville and that situation changed, A&M was next up on that list for NIL. And, Reuben Owens ends up staying in state.
Billy, have a great rest of the day. Thank you for the information, man.
Will do. You guys do the same.
All right, man. See you. There's Billy Embody checking in from On3. Make sure and keep up with those guys at on3.com if you want to keep up with the latest in recruiting, and you can check out Billy's work at Billy Embody is the easiest way to follow him on Twitter, where you can get all of the updates. Our show is daily brought to you by RMB Builders, Rhett Bourgeois and the crew at RMB Builders. Check out the Instagram if you want to see specific projects that they have going on. They're doing work in neighborhoods. They have dream projects going on for players, for customers. If you want to,
or players.
Yeah, or players. I'm sure they got a couple of players in the client list.
My dream project's going on.
That's right. Big in the U Club, so you know how it is out in the UC. But RMB Builders, rmb-builders.com. Instagram, check out their Instagram. Give them a follow there, like the posts.
They're building the old neighborhood over here.
What's that?
My neighborhood. I don't want to call it mine, but the neighborhood I live in.
Right.
A couple R&B signs going up all over the place.
High rent district.
Yes. If I would seem, I wish they would. I don't know. Maybe that's what the cops were checking on, making sure nobody's hanging out in the half-built houses. That's what you did when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, squatters.
Mm-hmm. Go smoke
I
weed
did not
in
do
the
that
house.
when I was a kid.
Oh, you
Squatters, bro.
No,
Crazy.
I didn't go hang out in half-built houses.
Oh, is that an Alexandria thing?
I don't know. Did you do that?
I didn't hang out there, but I thought it was.
There were some late nights where it's like, where are we gonna go?
It was a great kind of like, well, we can go here.
Yeah, we really don't have a plan. I know a place.
And they usually don't check these places here.
Now they got security cameras up around all
they
those
do.
places, so you
They do.
can't.
I mean, it's not the 90s anymore, kids.
Sorry.
There was
Missed
a
out.
this is really weird, but in Hattiesburg there was a little people house, complex kind of house that was abandoned, but it was built for little people.
That's kind of eerie.
We would go there at night. Like, no one was checking on it. There were no cameras. Like, the door, I mean, I'm not trying to sound politically incorrect, but it was built for little people.
Oh, the doors are tiny.
Everything was short. You had to duck through the doors. It was and they like left everything in there, like furniture. Everything was left and then like abandoned.
Is the furniture tiny?
Everything is tiny.
Tiny toilet?
I don't know. I don't remember the toilet, but I guess it'd be lower to the ground.
Well, and it can't be as wide, right? You'd fall right in.
I don't know about that.
You should go for a swim.
I don't think so. Because like kids use toilets, so. This is getting weird. Anyway, that was like my experience with going to an abandoned house, but it was very strange.
I wish I'd have gone to that.
Low ceilings?
Everything low. We ducked to get into the house. It was bizarre.
That sounds awesome.
All right, we're going to get our bets here with Zach Ewing 15 minutes from now. Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Southern Eye Centers, located at 6859 Jefferson Highway, right here in Baton Rouge, has been serving your eyes for over 40 years in the capital region. They offer friendly service in a helpful environment with the highest level of personal care to manage your eye health and vision needs. If you want more information, log online to southerneyecenters.com. That is southerneyecenters.com. Stop in and check out their beautiful office located on Jefferson Highway, right here in the capital city. And remember, each time you walk in there and you mention the Jordy Culotta Show, Dr. Ann Shaw and Southern Eye Centers will take 25% off of their fantastic selection of sunglasses. All you got to do is mention the Jordy Culotta Show. Check them out. SouthernEyeCenters.com and located at 6859 Jefferson Highway.
Looking to book a dumpster but no idea how? We've made it quick and easy for you. Check out our website at moralesrolloffs.com. Let Morales Rolloffs know your desired delivery date, and finally, provide your contact details. To make payment, look out for an email invoice with all your booking details. On delivery day, our driver will notify you through text and email that your dumpster is ready and on the way. Now you know how easy and convenient it is. Call Morales Rolloffs at 225-427-0000 for your dumpster.
We're all from different places and backgrounds. We've each experienced our own versions of life, but in the end, we're all on the same team. I'm part of that team, along with these players in purple and gold.
Kayshawn Buddha, Malik Neighbors, Miles Frazier,
Kyron Lacy,
Greg Brooks.
Whether on the field or in the courtroom, your team matters.
So join our team.
make a difference.
Bet. Let's get it done.
Hey Baton Rouge, when traveling through Natchez, Mississippi, whether you need to fill up your vehicle or your belly, stop by Go-Mart and On The Go Deli. Go-Mart has clean restrooms, community coffee, an awesome beer cave, and a great selection of anything you might need on your trip. So stop by Go-Mart at 4 Sergeant Prentice Drive as you're entering Natchez on the left, and visit Tom and Wright Granning and their awesome team at Go-Mart.
In a wreck, Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys is ready to go to work for you. Come meet your team.
I'm your intake specialist. I coordinate your case and connect you with your attorney and paralegal.
That's us, your legal team.
Here you go.
Thanks. And we'll fight to get you every dollar you deserve.
I'm your settlements and disbursement manager, and I'm here to get you paid on time.
I'm attorney Gordon McKernan. Put our team to work today. Just call us. Get it done.
Play it during the football game. Boosie, I want Webby, right. I want NBA YoungBoy. Play the people that are from the city.
Right.
I mean, play the people that are
Give me
from
that neck.
Louisiana. Absolutely. I think that's the best part about the Dome, really, is that they embrace New Orleans. And look what happens. I mean, you got Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara dancing on the sidelines with one another. You show it to the stand. You show it to the in-game crowd, and people lose their mind. I mean, they want to blow the roof off the Dome when they play that stuff.
Yeah, they do.
And they're playing well. You know what I mean? Like, it makes so much sense to play that entire stadium. I mean, play the Louisiana Artists in Tiger Stadium. Made it fun.
I don't know. I think just the fact that we knew we were going to get them. Like,
that is fun.
Yeah. I've always been able to recruit players. I've always been able to get players. You talked about SMU. We signed the highest rated recruiting class in program history last year.
Wow.
In the only year that I was there. At Vanderbilt, we signed 4 top 100 kids, and we finished last in the SEC, for 2 years leading up to that. So recruiting players, that's never been an issue. It's always been, I always wanted to recruit the top end players.
Yeah.
And here I get a chance to do that. Anytime you work for Kim Mulkey, you're going to be able to recruit the top players in the nation.
I'm not sitting here today thinking that they got an impossible shot.
Yeah,
do they have an unlikely and difficult road to get there? Yes. But one thing that we can all confirm about that committee, about the playoff committee, I've got no idea what they're talking about. I got no idea what the prerequisites are. I've got no idea what they need to see to put you in the field. I can guarantee all of them love Bama. Yeah. They all freak out over Alabama because they correlate Alabama to television ratings. Mm-hmm. They think in that room that if it comes close and it gets close, we might as well just put them in because everybody's going to watch.
It is going to be close.
And that's the difficulty here of running this thing with human beings making the decisions, because at the end of it, it's all going to come back to the money, the advertising dollar, and how they can get the most of it. And they know a field that features Alabama is a more popular field than any other one that does not include them that exists, right? Like, you can make the 4th team Ohio State. You can make the 4th team Tennessee. You can make the 4th team whoever the hell you want to make it. If it's not Bama, the suits don't feel like the college football mass crowd, the most college football crowd will show up. And that's ultimately what they care about. Welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Make sure to hit that like button, share button, comment button. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel as we are live here on this Thursday for a couple of more minutes. Zach Ewing going to be through here. A lot of you reacting to the Denver Harris question that was asked to Billy Embody, our local recruiting expert from On 3. Speaking of recruiting, yesterday, Shea Dixon Power Hour. If you missed it, it's up for you over in the Jordy Culotta Show YouTube. So make sure and check that out to get the latest in recruiting. We're giving you a lot of recruiting information here, as next week is going to be big as far as college football recruiting goes. Transfer portal going on right now. As we said earlier this week, it got open and active, and one of the names that jumped in there was five-star cornerback, former five-star cornerback, and Houston, Texas native Denver Harris was in that mix. And Harris went off to Texas A&M and had a pretty rocky freshman season. On the field, when he was available, he was a star. At the midway point, he was ranked as high as any freshman in the country. And for a lot of services who were doing like midway All-American teams, Denver Harris was on all of the freshman All-American squads at the midway point. After that, got into some trouble off of the field. Some stuff that, look, man, some boneheaded stuff like the car in the garage is just senseless, and luckily nobody was hurt in that stunt. But going through a parking garage of upwards of 75, 80 miles an hour that's a recipe for disaster. And I think that luckily nobody got hurt on that, and there was a great teaching lesson that came out of it. In fact, I can speak for certain and know on 100% fact that the car was actually taken away from Harris after that. He still does not have a vehicle. Now, that meant he was catching rides with other people, and he jumped in the car with another Texas A&M player who had guns and drugs in the car when they got pulled over. Again, not a good look for Denver Harris. They're on the road at South Carolina, and some kids are claim to be hitting a vape pen in the locker room, and Harris was in that mix. I can tell you that his parents now have been told and have been clarified that he was not in that number. There was some speculation whether he was or he wasn't, but the administration at Texas A&M and the football department have told Denver's family that he was not penalized or punished for that action. So I know that there is a report and there are stories around that he was in that mix, and whether he was or he wasn't in that night, I don't know. But I do know that the administration and the football department at Texas A&M has told the family that they did not charge him with anything or do not see him as a guilty party in that. Did he do some things that you'd like to have back as a freshman in college? Did he do some things that he's not proud of? Sure. And I'm not, going to use the example of who hasn't, and, who. It's a different day and time where these, the kids want to put things on Instagram. They want to live their life kind of through video, through, live messaging, through live video. And, for all of this stuff to kind of be on display, for it to all be seen and people being reacting to it, I think for a large part has humbled him to a degree. And another thing I can say for certain is that he has always wanted to come to LSU, and that LSU has always been his dream school, and that if there was ever an opportunity to make up the decision that he made last year, he would love to be in Baton Rouge. And I think so much so where he would absolutely buy in and fall in line to what Brian Kelly is building. By no means do I believe that by taking Denver Harris, if LSU does, do they have some type of malcontent on their hand? Do they have a guy that is young? And look, if you're listening to this and are old enough to remember Tack Minor playing basketball at LSU, Tack Minor came with some stuff, man. You know what I mean? He came, his attitude, his personality, his mindset out there. Look, it wasn't for everybody, and that's why Tack could average 30 points, 33 points his senior year, and not every college in the country was on him. Right? I mean, he was somebody that you knew you were going to have to. You were going to have to discipline. You were going to have to be prepared for his personality. And Denver is Tack's, legal stepson, but has been in his life since Denver has been an infant. And he's Tack's son. I mean, like, you know, from a personality standpoint, he's not as brash as Tack was. But, I mean, look, man, he's a 5-star cornerback that comes with the personality of a 5-star cornerback that LSU has seen many a times in their locker room, many a times throughout the recruiting. And one other thing I'll let you know about Denver Harris is that he's a day one starter for LSU, and not because they're in a position of need, not because that has a vacancy there, because he's potentially the best player at that position in that class. And he wants to be here. He wants to be at LSU. And I think that there's some meetings. I know that there's some meetings that need to take place between the family and between the player and between the coaches. That's going to happen. They're going to have those discussions and have those meetings, and I think the staff will determine whether or not they want to include him in the class. One thing's for certain that everybody knows. Guy's a stud. Kid can play. Soon as he touches down on your campus, he's starting for you. Is he 18 years old and needs discipline? Yeah, he does. Didn't we all?
Doesn't Lloyd at 31?
I mean,
30, bitch.
Don't we still? You know, I mean, all of
Yeah,
us.
we
But I
do.
mean, at 18, it's a different type of attention to that part of your life that you need, and he needs it.
But I think a lot of what he did and maybe the way he acted is because if you're not all the way in on where you are, it's easy to fall out of line, right? Like, I don't think he was all the way bought in on being at A&M. He wasn't all the way bought in on the message that Jimbo was sending. And when if you want to be somewhere else, you can kind of almost subconsciously force your way there, or like without even really knowing what you're doing. But you don't really give a hell, like give a fuck what you're doing because you don't want to be there.
If you don't have discipline and you live in a world where if you don't have it, you'll bend it. That's not the best place for everybody.
Right.
And Harris was allowed, and look, I'm not making an excuse for him because there's a lot of guys that went onto that campus that just bought it, that abided.
Fell in line.
They just abided, right? And it seemed like Harris was in trouble throughout his freshman season. But in talking to people in and around that program and people that were following that program, there wasn't a lot of discipline and structure put in place to hold these guys accountable. One of the first things that Brian Kelly did that jumped out to everybody was build accountability, to hold people accountable for their actions. It looks as if, you know, Texas A&M feels a lot like LSU was a couple of years ago, where, I mean, it was the players were running the place. I mean, they were getting away and doing with really whatever they wanted to do. So
that's what it feels like. It feels like that's why LSU almost makes sense for Denver Harris, because even if you are a parent and you see how he's acting, it's like, well, now I don't want you even close to A&M. Like, you obviously can't handle yourself there. Like, especially when you add that many stars at once, like A&M did, there's going to be – they're all like – it's almost like little fish in a big pond. They're used to being superstars and being coddled and, like, having people help them through their life at points whenever they need things. Whenever you have 15 of them on campus, like, not everybody can get the same amount of attention. But if you come to a place where, hey, not everybody's a 5-star here, then you can kind of get a little bit more accountability. You can get the help that you need to where it's not on a whim I'm going to make a decision to do something whenever I should have been talking to somebody first.
And I will tell you that the biggest testimonial, the biggest advocate, and the biggest advantage that Denver Harris has going for him as far as LSU goes is that, you know who his best friend is? You know who he grew up with? You know who he's been on the youth league team with since they were 8 years old with?
Who?
Harold Perkins.
Oh, I was like, Harry.
So if Harold walks up into the room and says, "It's my guy.
I vouch for him.
You bring him in, I'm keeping him in line. He's going to be running with 40. And guess what 40 ain't doing? He ain't been in the rules. He's not subjecting himself to penalizing his football status. I believe that.
Me too.
I believe that Harold Perkins he's focused on football. He's focused on Sundays. He's focused on getting there. This is a part of the process. And Denver Harris being one of his good friends and being in his inner circle day one is good for everybody. It's good for Denver. It's good for LSU. It's good for Brian Kelly. It's good for Denver's family. It's good for the LSU defense. It's good for everyone. And if that happens, if he's accepted into the class, which I think there's a face-to-face meeting that's going to happen that the decision will be made upon, if all of that lines up, then LSU just picked up the number one cornerback in the same class where they got Harold Perkins, who's the number one linebacker. And you got those cats playing on the field together again. And not only that, you're doing a solid for Perkins. Now he feels more comfortable. My guy's here. I mean, make it happen, man.
And don't you think that Harold now, after the year he had, has that cachet to be able to walk in and be like, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm saying, like, I'm in this room because I'm vouching for Denver Harris, so you know how I feel about him.
Yes.
And if you want to keep 40 happy, this is a great way to do it. Go a long way for me.
Absolutely. And look, that's all we need to hear. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, Harold. All right.
We appreciate it.
You want to ride with?
We'll let you know. Zach Ewing is here. He'll be giving us a line. Zach, come on in. We've taken enough breaks here in the second. Come on in. We'll set you up right here. Our friend from The Advocate, he's been here every week. He was traveling last week, but it is good to see him back with us. This is a very depressing weekend to a sports gambler, I'd imagine. You have been in football just euphoria for the past 4 months, where it has just been a selection of college and pro throughout every weekend, sometimes throughout every weeknight. And now you just hit the brick wall of no college football. How do we react this weekend? Do we gamble on everything? Do I start betting on soccer?
You got the World Cup out there.
I was having a good weekend and before that monologue.
I know.
Like now I'm all depressed again.
I know. Well, I mean, is it true?
It is in a lot of ways. Like that's why college football rivalry week is so great. And then, but you kind of feel like, it's the opposite of the light at the end of the tunnel. Like you see the darkness ahead where you're like, oh man,
at some point this is going to be over.
This is going to get dreary now in a couple weeks. I think they should expand the college football playoffs so we have more games.
Yes.
There we go.
That's a good idea. I mean, the other part that's hard about this is that this is a really difficult weekend for NFL betting.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very hard for me to see an edge anywhere. I mean, there's a weird game where the Lions at 5-8 are favored over the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings.
They score
10-3.
I love that.
The market's been low on the Vikings all year long.
Mm-hmm.
And they're only plus 10 point differential. They 10-3 and they're 10-2. But because they got blown out by the Eagles and they got blown out by the Cowboys and they've won a bunch of close games, they've only outscored their opposition by 10 points total, which is one of those sort of basic things you look at to see how powerful a team really is. And on the flip side, the Lions come off just beating the brakes off the Jaguars last week, and the Jaguars are not a bad team. They look pretty good against the Bills on Thanksgiving, so I kind of get it. I don't know that I'm comfortable. It's up to 2.5. I'm not laying the 2.5. Like that's just an example of a game where there's a lot of them. I don't, what do you make of? Like even tonight's game, we don't know. Baker Mayfield might damn well start for the Rams after one day of practice.
No, he could. So what's the biggest winner here after college football ends? Is it college basketball that sees the most gaming now?
It's got to be the NBA.
Really?
Especially once you hit Christmas, you get those Christmas Day games, and then you get into the second half of the season after that. I think that's one thing that we learned since we started bet.nola.com and Bayou Bets is that there are way more NBA bettors than we thought. I mean, not that we ignored it, but once the NFL ends, like that's by far the next biggest thing.
Uh-huh.
And lucky for us, the Pelicans are having a great season so far. So that'll be fun.
Have you seen any of their line movements? Have you seen them? They were obviously undervalued to start the year. Has it been corrected yet?
Honestly, I was just looking this morning. They're still 22-1 to win the NBA title. They're still plus money to win their division. I know people don't think about NBA divisions too much, but you can bet. Now, that means beating out Dallas and beating out Memphis, which are two pretty good teams. They're plus 155, I think. So They have a lead on them right now. They have a lead on the whole conference. But I don't know. The market seems to think they'll regress a little bit. I'm curious to see how they start playing when they get fully healthy because, quite frankly, I mean, like Brandon Ingram is a great player. They've been playing better since he went out. Yeah. I don't know if they can sustain that. They need his scoring ability at the end of games. But they're going to have to kind of figure out that rotation and that balance. So,
you mentioned that it's a tough weekend for NFL. Does anything jump out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I still lean Raiders tonight. I think the number moved up to 6.5, as long as it's under 7. I mean, it's a short week for both teams. Jeff Wolfert played okay for the Rams at quarterback last week against Seattle, but he's injured also. And so if it's not Baker Mayfield with 1 day of practice, not really knowing the playbook, then it's going to be Bryce Perkins, who we saw a couple weeks ago, very limited in what he could do. And so I just think this is a spot. The Raiders are in must-win mode. They've won 3 in a row. Look, the Rams still don't have Aaron Donald. Cooper Kupp's out for the year. Matthew Stafford's out. This is not a true NFL-level team. And so I think the Raiders can take advantage of that win by 7. So if I had to lean that way, I'd go that way. Elsewhere, I still kind of like the 49ers against the Bucs. I know a lot of people...
Purdy?
Yeah, with Brock Purdy. He looked pretty good. Yeah. But more than anything, it's an indictment of what Tampa Bay is. And, I don't know that we need to rehash what happened Monday night, but the Saints had that game won. Oh. And we know the Saints are not that good. They let it go, but there was 10 different simple things they could have done to win the game. The Bucs can't run the ball. Brady doesn't look like himself. Their defense doesn't look like itself. And the 49ers, quite frankly, to me, might be the 3rd best team in the NFL, and they're probably the favorite out of the NFC to make the Super Bowl, even with Brock Purdy. Their defense and their running game is that good to me.
No, I agree with that.
So
I agree. NBA, anything trending here early on in the season?
My trick on NBA, especially when you're kind of in the doldrums of the regular season, look through the lines each day and think to yourself what it should be. And if one of them seems way, way, way off, you want to go with the side that's way off. And that's usually it's because somebody's sitting out and they know it before everybody else does. And then when it's announced that he's sitting out, the line will move even more and you'll get 3 or 4 points worth of value. It's not always easy to do, but if you kind of practice it and sort of you got to handicap those teams in your mind and think, okay, well, what would Joe Q Public think this line is going to be? And if it's way off of that, that can be a game to target.
Totals is a big play in the NBA, right?
Can be. I'm not very good at them, but it can be.
No, I agree. You played any of this World Cup?
A little bit. I have a ticket on Brazil to win. I also have a ticket on Brazil to finish first and England to finish second in that exact order.
An exacto.
I think England's probably going to lose to France on Saturday, if I had to guess. My wife's family's from England, and that's like her one sport that she follows, and so I hope I'm wrong. But when I made that bet, I kind of looked at the bracket and saw this England-France game coming, and I really thought France, with all its injuries and defending champions usually don't play very well and that sort of thing, that there'd be turmoil, but they look like a machine. So that'll be interesting. That's the game to watch in the next round for sure.
So does she dress up?
I already got her the early Christmas present, the World Cup jersey for the 3 Lions.
Love that. Didn't y'all go visit there recently?
Yeah, we went in March. I mean, her family's still over there, so we go every couple of years. But she's like, I tease her all the time, like, you're born in the United States, you're American, you can't. And she, well, I'll root for the U.S. as long as they're not playing England. So that's
no accent, huh?
What's that?
No accent.
No. She was born in St. Louis, and
she just plays it up.
But her dad's English. Her brother lives there, so she's very much
that
brought up in that culture. So
wow, that's cool.
Now we're all rooting for England in my house.
So what do y'all do for the World Cup? Are y'all going to the pub?
We went to the pub for the U.S. Wales game. We didn't go for England because everything was closed on Black Friday. Like this, like the London.
It shows how much we care about soccer.
It's closed on Black Friday for USA England. Like, what are you guys doing?
Weird.
Yeah, but we got the wall chart up and the kids fill it out and stuff. So yeah, we're a World
cool.
Cup family. It's hard to bet on though, really is. You can go goal scorers, like Mbappe to score a goal the way the guy is. Like he can score from anywhere, so I don't mind that on Saturday. Or France, you can get it plus money to win within the 90 minutes, like not go to extra time. And so I kind of like that as well.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
All right, tell betnola.com. What are we doing here?
Bet.nola.com and the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. We're live 4 o'clock every Monday and Thursday. We got written content pumping out constantly. So check us out. They're letting me drink beer on the air now. So I have a new brew every Monday and Thursday. So check that out at 4 o'clock today.
Oh, yeah. All right, follow him on Twitter, and you can see him every week right here on the Jordy Culotta Show, giving us lines, compliments of our friends over at Caesars Sportsbook. He's the director of sports betting and gaming over at The Advocate. He's on Twitter at @ZEwing. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. We'll be back with you tomorrow for Friday's show.
Cool.
Dude.
I can't believe that.
Don't tell Josh Pate.
Lord.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Are we
Have a good
eating
Monday.
tomorrow?
We are eating tomorrow. Compliments of our friends over at Iverstein. So come hungry. We'll be here tomorrow
Come
from
hungry, leave happy.
Always do.
7 to 9 a.m. as the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Hit the like button, share button.
You come hungry?
Chill out.
I really meant that.
Sure you did. We'll
Something
be
wrong
back
with her.
tomorrow
It's
at
not
7
me.
a.m. Yeah, right. Appreciate you being here.